Wake up, eat breakfast, clock in, work, clock out, eat lunch, clock in, work more, clock out, eat dinner, sleep, repeat. Anyone who's worked the 9-to-5 corporate grind knows this life too well. But is it necessary? You may be surprised to learn that the number of freelancers is increasing dramatically, already representing more than 1/3 of the entire US workforce and growing fast. And this growth isn't slowing down anytime soon, with record millennials and Zoomers going rogue and headlines predicting the imminent end of the 9-to-5. As freelancers increasingly dominate the workforce, 9-to-5ers are left wondering if freelancing might really be the best option. But will they be able to find enough new jobs consistently? And once they do, how will they manage their bandwidth? Will they miss having coworkers? What about health benefits, paid time off, 401ks, and how will they avoid burnout? They can become overwhelming, but they're questions faced by millions around the world every year, including Skyler Thomas, an ex-9-to-5 corporate worker turned freelance YouTuber with 200,000 subscribers and a compelling story of life on the other side. Now, after a year spent living just off his YouTube channel and the freelance work it generates, Skyler has plenty of advice to share with people considering taking the leap. Today, I ask him, should every corporate editor trade their 9-to-5 job for a freelance career? Welcome back to the Famous Editors Podcast. Today I'm talking to Skyler Thomas, a YouTuber who teaches editing with almost 200,000 subscribers, almost 20 million views, who fell in love with editing while he was a professional snowboarder, cutting videos of himself doing half-pipe competitions. So today we're going to talk about how Skyler transitioned from his 9-to-5 job at the agency to being a full-time freelance editor, growing his YouTube channel. We're going to talk about Skyler's first viral video. We're going to talk about his post-production workflow. And we're going to get into how trying to juggle his freelance YouTube editing with a full-time job burned him out, and what it was that ultimately brought him back to YouTube.
I just can remember since I was a kid, there's just always this kind of creative component. Probably I'm 35, so I'm old enough to kind of, remember a little bit before when everything was so accessible, when cameras were so accessible, when editing software was really accessible. And my older brother showed me how to basically take footage from our camcorder and record it onto a VHS tape. And then thus began, you could actually record in a linear fashion little clips until you could actually create a video out of it. And just being a kid and being like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Just by stopping and starting editing in camera.
Yeah, taking just an old camera, for home videos, and then plugging it into the TV or VCR. To most people who probably don't even know what a VCR is at this point, but then using that and just hitting the record button on the clips from the the camera and just creating little videos in sequence. So I remember making little skateboard videos, and then it kind of just upgraded from there, doing that for a while until eventually, Windows video editing software, the real basic stuff. I grew up a competitive snowboarder, and I was making sponsor me tapes for me through high school and things like that.
Cool. Were you filming your friends also?
Yeah. Friends, and this is also the era of when Jackass first started coming out, and I remember making all sorts of goofy videos of my friends and I just throwing ourselves into bushes and things like that, just inspired to make as silly as stuff as possible. But I don't know if there's really that aha moment where I was like, this is going to take me on for the rest of my life. But
what was the first thing you ever posted on YouTube? Do you remember? Or even online?
First thing I probably ever posted online was probably a snowboarding sponsor me edit. So just various shots of me riding half-pipe. I rode competitively as a half-pipe rider for a long while. Not as good as, the likes of people like Shaun White, but I remember I was riding in those contests. I think that's where I kind of got my start into the creative side, is being like, okay, you know what, I can film this, I can edit it. When I didn't even go to school. I didn't go to film school traditionally like a lot of people did. I went to school for marketing, and eventually made my way to, editing just because it was a side career and side passion of mine. So that's...
When did it become a real career for you?
Became a real career when I got out of college. I had a brief stint out west in Tahoe where I was trying to make it as a competitive snowboarder for about a year until some injuries. And then I moved to New York City. And from there, bought myself like a real DSLR. I'd already been playing around with Premiere Pro for a while, but it kind of became a real career from there, just walking around the city, learning how to use the camera, creating edits, and then realizing that I could make edits for other people as well. First real job that wasn't freelance was when I made it to Boulder after New York City. I worked for an agency and just started doing interview videos, things like that. I got hired on as kind of like a, jack of all trades sort of person. I don't know if they necessarily said, you're just going to be a video editor. I do a lot of graphic design on the side as well. But that's when I really started doing a lot of more camera work and editing.
When did YouTube become important to you as something you put work into every week?
That was after my agency job in Boulder, and it was about 2018, I think. I just left. I wanted to take on freelance for a little while just to kind of clear my head of what, the 9-to-5 sort of grind was like. And it was during that time that I'd seen some other people that were doing YouTube and decided to post my first YouTube video. I posted 3 or 4 kind of random videos, not really sure what the YouTube channel would really be like, but one of the first ones I did was called 5 green screen tricks in 3 minutes. And I think where my YouTube channel ended up going was sort of dictated by the algorithm, because the algorithm happened to catch that video, send it viral, and it all kind of, just spiraled from there.
Cool. What was that like? How did that feel, seeing a video take off?
It was kind of surreal, to be honest. I remember going hiking, because I live in Colorado. I went hiking, didn't have service. I came back to my phone absolutely just blowing up. It was a lot of fun. You get, at the time, I would get an email for every comment, and there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I was like, whoa. And yeah, it was just a lot of excitement, thinking that, all right, I'd seen some other people doing it on YouTube. Maybe this was my opportunity to be able to do it myself. And there's just a ton of excitement for it. Like thinking, yeah, this could be it. This could be the break.
Did you get back to work immediately on the next video? What came next?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a couple months after the video had posted. And I think a lot of people think, you post a video immediately, it's either going to go viral or not. Sometimes it takes a while for YouTube's algorithm to just recognize what your audience is and start pushing it to those people. But I think I'd already put out several videos after that. And yeah, I mean, the fire was lit. I was definitely making a lot of videos. I can't really remember where I was at in that process, but it was exciting. So yeah, as soon as I could upload again, I was doing it.
What were the milestones then? The subscriber milestones that you hit, the collaborations, what were the meaningful indications of progress as you grew the channel?
I think the first kind of meaningful indication was at the time, I don't even know if it's still this particular milestone, but you have to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in order just to monetize your channel. So being able to kind of hit that milestone and then be able to be like, okay, I can put ads on my videos and see what I can actually make for money off this. That was kind of the number one. And once one video went viral, it happened pretty quickly. I think I went from a couple hundred subscribers to about 10,000 subscribers in a couple days. So,
wow.
Yeah, whereas I don't think that's usually the case for a lot of people.
That's wild.
There's usually a pretty slow growth period where you're kind of, but in this case, I got lucky. A video happened to go viral and it all kind of happened really fast. So it was exciting. I would like to say 1,000 subscribers was the milestone, but it got to 10,000 so quickly
that blew past it.
Yeah, and then I think getting first AdSense check was really exciting.
Cool. How much was that check?
Probably not a ton. I think for a while I was making just a couple dollars a day, so I was probably getting like $50 to $100.
It's cool. But yeah, it's money.
It's a good start. Then having other days where, and these are kind of far and few in between, and it's kind of where I'm working to build my channel right now, but seeing days where I would get $200 in AdSense just for the day and being like, okay, I can see where bigger YouTubers are seeing some good money. And from there, just being able to create consistent content was fun.
So What came next, and what was your, at the time, what was your vision for the channel?
Vision for the channel, I mean, for a while it was be creative, get my creative side out. Having worked more of that 9 to 5 sort of life, a lot of what you're doing as a video editor can be a lot of interviews, and you're doing a lot of, you're shooting interviews, you're editing interviews, can typically be what a lot of clients want because it's the basics. So for me, wanting to always be learning new techniques, the channel was about kind of exploring that. Before I even started doing the YouTube channel, while I was still at Godot Communications in Boulder, I was basically every weekend hanging out with a couple of friends that were really kind of more into the acting side of things and writing. And every Saturday, I think we got together and we were creating skits or playing with the green screen and seeing what sort of weird stuff that we could create. And that was kind of a formative time for me going into the YouTube channel, kind of realizing, okay, this is a lot of fun to be creative on the side. How can I continue to develop this kind of creative skill in a way, learn new things for each video, and then see what people enjoy out of it and what kind of resonates with people. So,
And then tell me how you arrived at Seed Creative Collective.
so Seed was kind of something that started around the time that the YouTube channel started. Honestly, it's just a creative collective between me, a friend, and some other creatives that we knew in the area, basically bringing our freelance work together to be able to bring our clientele together. If we needed help with certain aspects, if one person was better at graphic design, whereas I might be better with After Effects and motion graphics, we would just bring in each other's talents. So Seed Creative Collective was just a collective of creatives doing a lot of freelance work together. And that's something that I was doing pretty much, as much as I could on the side when I was doing the YouTube channel full time.
I've always felt that working with friends sounds great until I try it, and then it's the most stressful experience ever. How did you manage those relationships and protect your friendships while working with your friends?
Maybe I had a good experience just with this particular person that we started it with, but he and I were kind of the creative heads. But yeah, we got along pretty well. We didn't really have any creative, disagreements when it came to how to approach projects. So it was pretty easy on my end, actually. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could give you a more insightful answer, but it was I didn't run into those sort of troubles, I suppose.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It sounds that you were even 50-50 partners, and there was never a concern about who was doing more work or who was hustling harder to get jobs or anything like that.
No, I mean, we're both pretty laid back people. So if one of us brought in a job, we would generally just kind of work out like a percentage of like, all right, yeah, I'm doing this amount of work. But this is your client, your project. So the business side of it never really became too big of an issue, which was nice. Yeah.
The channel is growing. You're producing a ton of content, and then you decided to take a pause. What inspired that?
It was kind of at a point where the channel was growing, but I wasn't seeing quite the opportunities that I needed from a just pure revenue standpoint to be able to kind of justify doing it full time.
What did you need, and how close were you to that?
I was hoping to be able to put full focus into YouTube, not have to worry about the freelance side hustle as much, and be able to make a living off of that. And
yeah,
I was realizing that AdSense alone wasn't going to make it. There's a lot of, and for the most part, you see that especially now that AdSense has kind of declined for a lot of creators. At the beginning, it was really high for a lot of creators, which got everyone's, really excited and hopeful. But there are some things that would really affect that. Would be get a lot of international views. So you're
which are worth less.
Yeah, so it's kind of based. Your cost per mil is like how much you make per 1,000 views, and it really varies from country to country. There's a lot of up and coming video editors based in India, and so there's a lot of people that are really interested in the sort of content that I was producing, but the cost per mil for India was a lot less. So I'd be seeing a lot less AdSense than what I would look up and see other creators making. So I was kind of, for a little while, wondering if I was going to be able to make it in that sense.
Was it half, or was it less than half of a US view?
I don't really remember, but
noticeable.
Quite noticeable. Sometimes far less than half, like a quarter or a fifth.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hear Zach King. If you've ever heard of Zach King, he does a lot of interesting editing magic.
I like when you teach his tricks.
Yeah, it's a lot of really fun stuff. But he said himself that a lot of his audience is international, so he has to rely pretty heavily on sponsor deals. So there's a way to do it, but you can't really rely primarily on AdSense. A lot of it is relying on sponsor deals and other channels of revenue that you can create.
I've heard this from almost every creator we've had on this podcast.
Yeah.
And so what did you think about sponsorships or brand deals at that time when you were realizing that AdSense wasn't enough?
Maybe I wasn't business savvy enough, but at the time I wasn't seeing a lot of the kind of traffic through email, a lot of people offering to, which was surprising because at the time the percentage of my videos that were getting significant views was actually incredibly high. I think like half the videos I was putting out were getting 500,000 views or more, which is a lot. I didn't realize it at the time. That was pretty lucky, but I definitely would have taken them if they were the right fit. But I wasn't getting a lot of that at that time. So realizing that it might take a bit longer than I thought. Going back to the original question, that's when I decided I was going to look for a little bit more of a full-time editing job or video job, which I ended up finding. But I might have been a little naive in thinking that I would be able to balance the two, YouTube and full-time work.
Both full-time jobs.
Yeah. And it worked for a little while, but burnout, it sets in.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I love the YouTube burnout chart that you have in one of your videos.
Yeah.
The work that as the output increases, the stress increases, and then burnout hits, and
then it's
stuck.
And that was very real to what I was experiencing, especially working a creative job where a lot of that is time in front of your computer. You're constantly thinking about it. It's going from that after 8 to 10 hours a day, and then being like, okay, if I want to put out a video, I got to put in another 4 to 5.
Oh, that is brutal.
And I did that sometimes. I would do the 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. sort of days. But after each one of those videos that I'd put out, I'd find myself being like, the quality isn't there. The video isn't as good. It's getting, and people notice that and they comment on it. And then you're already feeling a little self-conscious about it. And then people say it and you're just kind of like, you get upset, but it's kind of true. So at the same
How would they say it? Do you remember any of the comments? Are those burned in your in your memory somewhere?
Yeah, there's a few weird ones that get burned into my head, but it's just like people that are be like, I think you should have taken more time to figure this effect out before you made a video about it. And then it's like, you're probably right. But I where I used to have the opportunity to really flesh out the ideas and make sure I have everything looking perfectly good, just didn't have the time or the energy to devote to that. So
what was that editing job, the full-time job?
So that was working at a company called Vertiform, software company. I started off as a our lead video creator and editor, and then eventually, actually after just a few months, ended up leading the team. It was about a 4-person creative team of about. I still did video work, but we had one other video motion graphics designer and 2 graphic designers. So I was leading our creative team for the company.
Was it fun? Were you fulfilled doing that?
Yeah, really. I really did enjoy doing that. I enjoyed being a people leader, but I think what ultimately, drew me away from that and really made me want to leave that for these creative endeavors to pursue YouTube again was just having full creative control. Corporate work, there's a lot of people that get, have their say. When you have a creative vision that you want to execute on, sometimes it can be really tough when there's so many people that are telling you to deviate from that vision that you have. So,
how often would you say during that time at Vertiform did you see a project come out the way you had envisioned it at the start, where the feedback didn't change it in some detrimental way?
I mean, not that many, but it was a lot of it was the work that I would want to be doing, which is more focused on video, would end up being shelved for things that are a little bit more quantity based, a lot of graphic design stuff. So a lot of the stuff that we even want to be able to work on or devote was being shelved so that we could produce all the content for the myriad of our other marketing team that needed us to help. So that was ultimately it, I think.
During that time, building that team, do you feel like you must have developed real leadership skills? Building a creative team is so different, and managing it is so different from being an individual contributor.
Yeah, I think so. I think it takes a lot to, know what motivates people, try to not only deal with the demands of the company, but also make sure that the team that you have is motivated to, be doing what they need to be doing, and feeling fulfilled as well. So you're not only in charge of your own feelings and how the direction you want to go, but you also have to kind of take into account your whole team.
Or else you lose them. Yeah.
No, or else you lose them. And so that stuff. And then knowing their strengths, where they want to go with their careers, those sort of things as well. So all that definitely plays a factor. I definitely think I got the hang of it a bit over time. There were, times where it's a struggle, because when it's a struggle for you, you know it's going to be a struggle for your team as well. And you have to also not show that it's such a struggle for you, which can be tough.
Yeah, which is so hard. How long were you in that role at Vertiform?
About 3 years. So
it's long.
Yeah, it was a good long run. It's always scary to take the next leap into something else, but I'd gotten to a point, where discussed it with my wife and on what we were going to do, and she was supportive of me, taking this time to build the channel up. And I knew it was going to be a risk, because at this point, despite the fact that when I had started the job, I was at about 40,000 subscribers, and then without really making that many videos over the last 3 years, I'm up to 186,000. But
wow. So just organically growing without your...
Organically growing through the algorithm pushing a few select videos. But even though the subscribership is there, when people subscribe, and if they're not tuned into constantly feeding new content...
You made a video about this, a great video. Yeah.
The algorithm is no longer necessarily in my favor. And I'm seeing that with some of the new content that I'm creating, where I put some of that out, and I'm getting fewer views than back before I started the job, because a lot of people go, oh, they might pop in and be like, oh, I didn't even notice this until now.
So what are you doing to reawaken the algorithm and get it back on your side?
I guess it's a balance between making content that I want to make, but also making content that I think other people are going to want to make. But at this point, I'm realizing it now that I can't take too much time with videos. I need to start producing more content. Which it's a strategy that I'm just realizing and shifting now a little bit. I see.
What's your target? How much volume do you feel like you need to produce to be in that sweet spot?
Would love to do a video a week, which I think it's not daily uploads, but with the kind of stuff that I'm doing, a week is, you got to put a lot of effort into this kind of stuff.
So much pre-production, so much planning. Production and then a ton of post, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. And so are you doing it independently right now? Do you have help?
Yep, independently right now. Yeah.
Wow. Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm probably going to, I think bringing in help from anybody would be something that I would probably end up only looking at if I can start consistently producing content with sponsorship deals, not having to rely on AdSense and things like that.
Are you looking for those right now? Have you started that process?
Yeah, somewhat. I know there are some. I do occasionally get emails from people asking like, hey, do you want to promote this product, or would you be interested in a sponsorship? A lot of those were coming back when I wasn't producing as much, and now I'm getting less of them now. But I think my main focus right now is content, and then producing the revenue streams that are necessary for a creator. As much as you want to focus on just the creative side, you got to also focus on the business side. And then I think that's the kind of strategy right now is content, revenue streams, go.
Great. What other revenue streams are you considering? So beyond just sponsorships where you have a paid promotion within a video, what else is there?
Patreon is one that, very popular. It's essentially just a way to say to your audience, like, hey, do you like what I'm doing? Would you be interested in throwing me a few dollars a month? And then you might be able to, depending on the tiers. When I actually had one back in the day, and I promised too much. I think this is kind of a pitfall that you can fall into when you're just starting Patreon for the first time, is if you promise too much and you're not getting the patrons, you're doing a lot of work for what essentially could add up to be very little.
What were the promises back then, if you remember?
For every tutorial I would get you project files, package those all together. various posts that I would put together through the Patreon. And it might not necessarily been a lot, but it was a lot of work in comparison to what revenue was actually coming in through that. So I think the key, honestly, in my opinion, to Patreon is to start small. Be like, hey, you want to buy me a coffee? I think that's going to be kind of it. When I first started, it's like, hey, are you getting something out of the videos I'm doing? Buy me a coffee once a month. This will be like $3 a month, and think of it like that. So that's where I'm going to start. And then outside of Patreon, yeah, I want to just build a couple courses, I think, that could be useful for people.
What would they be? What do you think are the most valuable courses you could offer right now?
I think just an intro to the fun side of editing, to video effects, to video magic, cool. I think would be where I'd want to start, because there's a ton that are just, fundamentals. There's a lot of fundamentals out there, but not necessarily a lot of people that are like, hey, this is, the steps you could take for both your camera work and for your editing to get into having fun with camera magic, that creative stuff that you see Zach King do. So.
And then what about, will you create packs, templates, any products that you sell beyond courses?
I don't know. I've personally bought some of those in the past, and I don't get a ton out of those. I mean, there's so many motion graphic templates right now that you can do subscription basis to, like Envato Elements and things like that. I'm not sure exactly what packs I would put together. I mean, there are those Premiere effects that you can do, like, here's your camera shake pack and things like that. But I almost like to bypass those and just show people how to really easily build them on their own.
Oh, that's fun. So, I like that.
But yeah, it's worth considering, and it's something that I wouldn't rule out, but I think I would have to come across what sort of pack would really fit for what I feel is my brand and what I put out there. LUTs used to be huge, and now, I don't know if as many creators are creating LUT packs that they're selling and things like that, but I'm more of an editor, less of a, I think, video production person, camera person. So
earlier you said, as you're planning new videos, it's a balance between what you want to be making and what you think the audience or an audience wants to see. What's the difference? What are you most passionate about making?
It is tough because there's a lot of different strategies to it, where you want to bring people into your world and show them what interests you and what you want to be having fun with. Mm-hmm. But you also kind of want to be mindful of what trends are out there with the algorithm. The algorithm dictates way too much, unfortunately. But I would love to be doing, I don't know, I guess a little bit away from the things that are really just geared to my sense of humor.
Give me an example, something funny.
Oh, I actually just put this out because I just put out a morph tutorial where I morphed myself into an emo guy. And the whole premise of that was to create, there's this guy I follow called Emo's Not Dead. And he does he's just this funny guy that kind of brings back the emo days. And he does these quick cuts where he's like himself, and then all of a sudden hear lyrics, and he'll cut back to him, and he's this emo guy. And I was like, oh, it'd be funny to create like a morph of that and create some sort of weird video based off that sort of humor. And I put together like 3 concepts. I edited them together. I'm like, these are all trash. Nobody's going to get this. And I uploaded one for like 30 minutes. And I just got like question marks for comments. And I was like, question marks and dislikes. And I was like, I'm going to take this down. So that just happened. And that's an example of making one just for me that I was like, no, I got to make them more for the audience.
How interesting. I would think, it sounds great to me. And I'm sure there is that segment of your audience that loves that. But I guess there's like, you really are playing to a very broad group of people.
It is funny because I say if you're true to yourself and you create videos that are true to yourself, you're going to find your audience. But man, some people are mean on the internet. So it kind of scares you into doing what you think is safe.
What's the dream project for you? Will you produce a feature film? Will you produce a TV show? If you could be working on anything in a year from now, what will it be?
Ooh, good question. Because, here's the thing about like producing a feature film that I want to do, but I also am I would consider myself a small creator that likes to do everything. I always have like wanted to wear all the hats. And feature films are so segmented into this person does this person does this person does this, that
very much.
That's a far-fetched dream to think that I'd make my way to the rinks to create a feature film, but to not have total control over every aspect is tough for me. That's why I like short films. I think those are great. You know, you can have a small team where everybody's kind of working together and you're not having to hand anything off too much. But honestly, I think the dream from a year from now is working on the content that I want to work on my YouTube channel, knowing that I've got an audience that enjoys watching it and is getting something out of it. Like that really is the dream, and that's why I'm pushing for it.
I love that.
Is that I really enjoy YouTube and the creative control that it gives me. And I just want people to be happy too with the videos that I create and to get something out of them. I think there's something that's very fulfilling about that.
Nightmares. Any funny stories of problems on set?
Especially when I worked at Godot Communications, we had kind of this philosophy of sell it and then learn it, which is fine. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you learning a lot, but there's just, a lot of times when you wouldn't know exactly what you were getting into going into shoot. And there's like a lot of times when we'd buy new equipment specifically for a new shoot. So your typical, you get through an interview with someone that is really busy, and then you realize that the memory card that you're supposed to put into your audio recorder needed to be formatted beforehand, and then that audio is lost. So there's going to be pains of just learning the process. There's no other way to check everything that many times until you've had those things go wrong.
Yeah.
It just happens. So having to deal with that kind of stuff and graciously ask to do reshoots, it's never fun, but it happens to all of us. And, I do follow a couple different, camera groups on just social media. It's just people that come in. It's like a forum, and the amount of stories you get every day of mishaps just reminds you that it happens to everybody. So,
I was doing a shoot a few years ago for Beyond Meat, that vegan hamburger patties.
Oh, I'm a vegetarian, so I actually love them.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, they're great. And so they had flown in this athlete who he had lost a leg, and after losing his leg, he'd put on a ton of weight, and was really struggling to lose that weight for years, and then discovered Beyond Meat, and somehow that was part of his whole. He decided to reinvent himself, and so he started running, and he became a marathon runner. And it was this amazing story. So they flew him out to El Segundo, which is where they're based. And we were down in Manhattan Beach, right nearby. In the back of we're filming from the back of our production truck. Someone's driving. We're there getting this great footage of the guy running behind us. Very dangerous, not not legal in any sense. But it was great footage. Sun was setting. It was magic hour. I mean, it could not have been better. I was in the back of the truck with an intern who was like our second AC. And so at one point we're pausing for a moment. We're going to go the other direction, or maybe we're finished at this point. I mean, it was pretty much the martini shot. And then he's like, oops. And we all just kind of looked at him and he said, oh, was that card ready to format? And then the DP or the AC said, no, that's the card we just shot on. And he's like, wait, this one? And he pulls it out. And we're like, yeah, that one. He's like, oh boy. And so he had wiped the entire, yeah, it was really, really, we lost like most of the day. It was awful.
I was gonna say, just the worst part about situations like that are it's not only are you upset because you just lost great footage, but you also just feel terrible for that person because you know that they didn't mean to make that mistake. And those are the things I struggle with because
Yeah.
Oh man, that's just a bad situation all around.
It was so hard explaining that to them. So anyways, not a great memory, but I learned. I don't know what I learned actually, but
you learn to do everything on a set. You learn to be as careful as possible and always have a backup plan. Honestly, for shoots, I bring way more than I probably need to on shoots, just in case. You just have to have a backup plan for in case, because usually just something will go wrong.
I would love to understand, every editor has a different workflow, like choosing the music first, and that kind of drives the edit. Others like creating the story first. What is your post-production workflow? So you've got your footage. Where do you go from there all the way through completion?
For me, I personally start off with getting the footage all together and doing like kind of just a stringing it out, getting the best takes, putting them together. It really depends on the kind of edit that I'm putting together. If it's more of a interview, it always starts with the string out, and then you add, what sort of emotion do you want to pull from that story after you can tell the story and edit that together. I usually try to match the music to be able to enhance whatever that story is. But if it's something that's more like episodic or more skit related, where you've got two different people talking to each other, it's amazing how, like, as you're saying with music, there's times when I completely change the way I'm editing after I find a song that I really like, and I go, oh wait, this hits in a different way. And then I'm, suddenly editing in a different way.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say I always have the exact same workflow. It usually starts with finding the best takes for me, and then searching for the best story I can in those takes, whatever's going to drive the story the most. And then usually I do everything to enhance it afterwards.
Awesome. So. What software do you think editors early in their careers now should be focused on learning? Where do you think the industry is going to be in the coming years?
Well, I started with Premiere. I moved to Final Cut Pro based off a job, and then I went back to Adobe. When I was working at Godot, they were adamant that I work with Final Cut Pro for a little while. They were doing some stuff with motion as well. But I'm such an avid After Effects user that this workflow ingrained in me for motion graphics or doing effects, where I want to be able to connect my editing software to this, to After Effects and have it work seamlessly. And that's what's great about Adobe.
Yeah.
But where I see things kind of going, and this is no fault of Adobe, and hopefully they can kind of right the ship, but you're building software off of old code. These products have been around for so long that you're seeing more and more bugs pop up. And this is, having worked at a software company, I realized this with old legacy software. You're trying to enhance, and you're working with such old code that you're just getting bugs for people. Bugs pop up more and more and more because you don't have this fresh foundation to work off of. And this is where I'm seeing a lot of traction coming from DaVinci Resolve, from Fusion, which is their kind of After Effects right there. And I'm seeing a lot more popularity with node-based editing. It's what a lot of editors use Nuke for as well. Nuke's kind of that industry standard, really expensive software. It's node-based with a lot of the kind of workflow that they're using. It's just a visualization of how you're adding effects and things to your footage and color grading and things like that.
Okay. And
here's why I think DaVinci is going to become really popular is they're offering their software free. There's a free version, there's an upgraded version that's only $300 total, but it's very accessible for new editors. And I think they've got the right strategy where they're not saying, hey, pay us every month. So I think we're going to be seeing DaVinci as kind of becoming the industry standard because they've got great color. And then also Blender, which is free open source 3D software. It's becoming very popular. Because it's free and it's becoming more and more powerful, it's also node-based. So this is kind of where I see a lot of popularity with that sort of node system coming into play. But yeah, to me, I see a lot of people hopping, just because it's so accessible, working with Blender and working with DaVinci.
Is that $300 payment for DaVinci a one-time thing? Then you own it after that? One-time
thing and then you own it, yeah. I've been tempted to kind of just get it so I can learn it. So right now I do all my color grading with Adobe. I do everything with Adobe just because I've been using it for years. But I have been tempted because I do get a lot of glitches from Adobe.
And then that's the software, super interesting. Looking at the editor now, how is the role of the editor going to evolve in the coming years? And how do we future-proof ourselves to be, as relevant as we can be and as AI takes more and more of the work of editing? That
is a really deep and good question. There are times that I worry about this as well. I think the role of the editor right now is to stay on top of technology. Because technology is always going to be a tool, regardless of, in my opinion, I don't see AI completely constructing our editing and stories for us. I do see it as becoming a more and more sophisticated tool, allowing us to do more sophisticated things, such as really laborious processes that you don't want to have to do. Right now, there are teams and teams of people that do rotoscoping work. And if you don't know what rotoscoping work is, it's tracing out characters frame by frame by frame by frame by frame by frame.
Frame by frame.
And you see it a lot with the top Marvel movies where they actually film things in front of a green screen, but a lot of times they actually still end up tracing everybody out because it ends up with a better product. So you've got teams of people doing this, but you're going to see more and more of these tools like AI doing this for us. And I think the key as an editor right now is to stay on top of technology enough to utilize these tools so that I think that's going to be the role of the editor, honestly.
And what interesting career paths do you think are opening now that maybe didn't exist in the recent past?
I wish I could stay on top of this, but I mean, social media is it's every part of in every part of our lives right now. You know, you've got influencers that need editors, and you've got these careers that you can be an influencer yourself just through video editing and having an edge there. So you got a lot of people that are creating their own content, telling their own stories. And I think it's going to be less about, where is your slot in the kind of conveyor belt of production, as opposed to people kind of taking on that role of being the storyteller and editor together. So I think people are going to be wearing more hats, and it is a little scary because it's so accessible right now that opens up the door for it to be less valued. But as long as you can, keep your skills enhanced and keep on top of technology, I think you got a good leg up.
I think that trend is happening across all areas of the production or the post-production industry. So we're producing a course with it's called The Art of the Trailer. And we filmed a guy, his name is Brett Wynn, and he runs one of the big movie trailer studios here in Hollywood. And something that he said, a trend that he says is sort of pervasive, is that more and more often the star editor that they're looking for is not just an editor, they're also very much a creative. They're writing the concept for this trailer. They are often writing new content that the agency will get to go out and shoot with the stars of the movie, or a new voiceover that they'll be able to go have the stars record. They're really good at music. They're really good at pulling abstract or esoteric songs together, and sometimes they'll re-record it with like an orchestra. They'll make it like operatic, or all sorts of different things. And then they have this like deep understanding of finishing as well. And motion graphics, of course. They're like really involved oftentimes in the look of the graphics, which is so fascinating because as recently as maybe 10 years ago, they were very siloed roles, is the understanding I got, that would just work with each other, but never be expected to all bring that into the same into the same body. Yeah. So I think what you're doing is the future of editing. It's the person that can go out, develop a great concept, go shoot it, edit it, do the animation, work with the music, the sound design, finish it, color it beautifully. Like, that's so valuable.
It's amazing how much you can really learn too from being a part of that process of doing it all. You kind of can understand some basic editing concepts like, oh yeah, if you're shooting between two people talking, you want to have a J cut. But then when you're, filming it together and then you're putting it together in post, it kind of clicks. I think it clicks a little bit more when you're doing everything together. Shooting for the edit is how I sometimes pose it. And then when you have more people on set that do a little bit of it all, there goes that whole saying, we'll fix it in post. Because the best way to fix it is not in post.
Yesterday, I interviewed a guy named Mark Heffrick. He's a very prolific editor, and he edited the last two Jumanji movies with Dwayne Johnson, and now he's editing the next Dwayne Johnson movie. It's a Christmas movie. But he has he did Predator, did the Rush Hour movies, he did Showgirls, like these cool, like classics. And he said that it's very apparent to him which directors are also editors. Like, he knows how much time each director has spent in the editing bay based on the dailies that come in. Yeah. Because he can see, when they think like an editor and they're getting a different type, they're a lot, the right coverage, like exactly what that editor needs. So he sees the scene right there before him. Whereas directors who don't have that editing experience, it's often a lot more work to create cohesive scenes.
Absolutely. I mean, that just gets me thinking about will the script supervisor of the future be an editor as well? Things like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, you see a lot of them, the best ones, they really, I mean, it comes with years of experience, but they have that eye for it as well.
One of his first jobs in film, maybe his first like legitimate film cutting job, was for a guy named Roger Corman, who is this incredibly prolific 70s and 80s producer who made hundreds of movies, always on super low budget compared to the big studio films, always super profitable. Mm-hmm. So he was like an amazing businessman who always was making things faster, making things cheaper, and just doing insane volume. And then he wrote a book, something like How I Made 100 Movies and Never Lost a Dime, or something like that. And so this editor was saying that many of today's legendary directors, producers, cinematographers came from the Roger Corman system. They were part of his machine of making films. So they learned efficiency, they learned speed, they learned how to work with like very limited resources and still make good stuff. Which I think is happening. That's happening now in YouTube. Those are the YouTubers like yourself that are standing out, who are, able to work with that speed you were talking about, one a week, not wanting to spend a ton of money on any one video because you have to make so many more after that, and yet squeezing out that production value is
definitely a necessity.
Right. Yeah. Well, this was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you having me. I hope I was able to at least bring some sort of unique perspective to. It sounds like you're interviewing a lot of really interesting people. So
well, it was wonderful. What are you working on now? What can we look forward to?
Right now, you know what? I decided my next couple videos are going to be. I love to skateboard. It's one of my favorite hobbies, and I'm doing a couple of VFX related skateboard tricks where, they're just gonna be really fun. I wanted to bring two passions together and have an excuse to get out and and practice both.
Oh, I love that. Will you do more snowboarding videos?
I haven't been snowboarding as much, but I probably should. I've got one on my channel, but as much as I get out there, I'll have to try to make it happen because it used to be a bigger passion for me. Now I'm just kind of more worried about getting old,
How often are you skateboarding now? Have you kept up with your skating, or are you?
I've gotten back into it. I took about 10 years off through my 20s, and then honestly just decided to get back into it around the pandemic time. The pandemic kicked off. And I've been doing it 3 or 4 times a week, and I've been getting everything back, and
cool.
It's been a lot of fun. So I've seen a couple cool creators that have created some skateboarding related VFX work on Instagram, and I'm like, all right, let's see if I can mimic some of these. So
I cannot wait to see that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.